laughing at the reason my son was given detention and not agreeing to it. I, 36F, have a son, 11M, in 6th grade will call Preston, which a teacher will call Susan, 50+ F. Some important background is that Preston is pretty skittish and jumpy. He easily gets startled by noises or voices he does not expect, especially if they are loud. I only have seen Susan in person like twice, but she has a distinctly loud, almost thunderous voice. Never heard her yell yet though, but Preston says it always makes him jump a little, and apparently she's known for being ridiculously loud in general from other kids and parents. Anyway, IWFH, and I got a voicemail on my phone from Preston using a school phone saying he got detention because Susan yelled at some kids fooling around during work time. He was startled, and she noticed, so she made him leave the room, work in the hallway, and call me to tell him he has to serve detention next week. I did not believe that was the reason he got detention at all, because that sounds really dumb, and assumed he was just minimizing his role. He does tend to do that when explaining his side when in trouble, so I thought I'd get Susan's side at recess while I went to lunch. I call her and I was completely caught off guard when what she said lined up with everything Preston said to a T. I wasn't sure what to say at first, but I ended up just laughing on the phone before any words could come out. Susan was irritated and asked what was so funny, and I just responded that I was so sure that Preston was lying to me, because that was such a ridiculous reason to give anyone detention, and that he is not serving detention just for being startled. She tells me that this is not a suggestion and that I'm being obtuse. I stood firm and asked her if she'd think it appropriate if her boss yelled loudly at some fellow teachers, "You were startled," and then he proceeded to dock her pay or some other form of punishment, following up with, "I bet she didn't even do jack squat to the kids she was initially yelling at." After noticing Preston, she got quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe I convinced her, but then she doubled down and said that failing to serve detention would result in suspension or more, and I told her I'd gladly fight her and the school on this if it came to that before hanging up. I do not intend to punish Preston just for getting startled. We all do it, and it's nothing worth making any issue out of. If I'm being honest, the only reason chose to post is because I vented to my friend about this later, and she actually did not side with me, saying that I was kind of being a D to laugh at Susan and that teachers don't get paid enough to deal with the things I said, so I wanna hear what unbiased people think. Comment 1. I startle easily. If I got in trouble every time I had a reflex response from a loud noise in the classroom, I would have been expelled several times over. That is easily the stupidest thing I've ever heard someone get put in detention for. NTA. Talk to the principal about this ASAP, and object. I'd be curious if Susan has actually explained what happened yet to those above her. If they have any common sense, they'd say it's ridiculous. Also, maybe to avoid any retaliation, see if he could change rooms and get a different teacher. This might be US defaultism talking, but I'd say it's pretty early in the school year to do a switch for the good of your son, so this teacher does not pull any more weird power trips like this one. Comment 2. NTA, I work in education too. I understand not getting paid enough, and I've seen some entitled parents, but you don't sound entitled. That is a pretty ridiculous reason to punish a child. Some people get startled easily. I'm one of those people. That's not a reason to punish someone. Definitely talk with the principals about this. Comment 3. NTA, I startle easy by loud noises too. Being startled is definitely not a reason to get detention. You were willing and did listen to the teacher. You were willing to believe your kid was lying. When you found out that your kid was being 100% honest with you, and this teacher really just wants to give a punishment for being startled, you laughed. I probably would laugh out of disbelief. I would definitely talk to the principal, but you aren't wrong. This is absolutely ridiculous. Refusing to let my son attend Syl's wedding? I am not white. My husband is. We have 2 kids. This conflict concerns our oldest, Jack 5-yo. My husband has a half-sister, and 23-yo, that he is not very close to. However, she gets along very well with Jack. She sometimes offers to take him on auntie-nephew dates, which I allow as I do trust her. She's great with Jack and he adores her as well. Anne is getting married in a couple weeks. We were all invited, but my husband couldn't get time off work, and my mother will be visiting that weekend too, so we won't be able to attend. Anne asked if we could at least let Jack attend and that she and my mill will watch him. I was hesitant, but Anne and my mill told me not to worry about it. I agreed. Then Anne told me that her father will be attending the wedding. I was surprised because she hasn't had contact with him for years, but they reconnected for her wedding. In my opinion, her father isn't a very good person. He's extremely racist and very headstrong about his beliefs. He is also easily convinced by certain kinds of media, and before we even knew he was attending the wedding, my husband showed me his Facebook posts and they were genuinely insane. Lots of generalizations about groups of people and justifying various horrors simply because of a person's skin tone or race. I told Anne that I don't know if my son will be attending anymore. She got what I meant and told me that her dad won't even be able to tell Jack isn't 100% white, so I have nothing to worry about. I mean, yes, my son is white passing, but with the current climate of things, I refuse to risk it. My son will sometimes speak my language and he is not 100% aware that he has to be careful around certain people yet. Anne got upset and told me that nothing will happen and I'm being paranoid. She even compared my paranoia to her father's. She then told me to think about it rationally, as the venue is a public place filled with people. I apologized and said I can't let him go. She started shouting at me and said I was ruining her wedding. She wants to spend it with everyone she loves, Jack included, and I'm ruining that by being paranoid. She then started crying, I think, before hanging up. My mill called me later saying that she swears nothing will happen to Jack and to please get over it for Anne's happiness. I said no. She told me that she hopes I'm proud of myself for breaking Anne's heart. I do feel bad, and I suppose I am being paranoid. But my husband is more hesitant about the decision, but ultimately agreed that we really can't risk anything. Comment 1. NTA, she's a white woman and she showed her true colors. Didn't take her long to bust out the white woman tears, either. Protect your son. Even just hearing what that man has to say, without you there to reassure and love on him, could mess him up in the future. And they're white. They have no idea what it's like or the impact that their ambivalence to the situation could have on your son and you. That they even invited this man to the wedding shows they don't actually care about black people, and that includes you and your child, regardless of the pretty words they use to hide their internal racism. Until they do the work, their word is worthless. ATP. OP comment. It's not even the words I'm afraid of. It's the chance that he may get physical. I know it sounds ridiculous, but my son is half Middle Eastern. I'm scared. And yes, this situation makes it a lot clearer. They may pretend to care or understand, but many simply don't. No one else seems to have an issue with this man being at the wedding, not even my mill, who divorced him because of his anger issues and extreme values. If she couldn't take it, why should my son? Comment 2. NTA, she said it herself, he won't even be able to tell Jack isn't 100% white, which implies that if he did find out there would be issues. Stick with your guns, and if she's getting this worked up over pre-wedding stuff, then imagine what will happen when Grandpa finds out little Jack is biracial and causes a scene at her big day. She'll probably find a way to blame you for it. Refusing to make my Scylla wedding dress? I, 27M, have loved making stuff since I was a kid, and I've worked with everything from wood to paint to welding and even fabric, which is what this situation concerns. I made my wife's dress since she couldn't find one that fit her, her style and our budget. It wasn't my first time making clothes, but I certainly wasn't an expert, nor am I now for that matter. However, the dress turned out amazing and everyone complimented it on our wedding day. Most were surprised I was the one who made it, but my sil, Sarah 25F, was extremely off-put when she found out. She took my wife aside during the reception to ask if she was really okay marrying a guy who made dresses and apparently made some homophobic remarks. My wife told me all this the day after. Ever since, Sarah has been rather cold to me and treats me like I have the plague, like she isn't outright mean, but she doesn't talk directly to me aside from pleasantries. It kinda hurts, but whatever, I don't generally see her since she lives in another state. Sarah recently got engaged to her BF of 3 years and asked me to make her a dress. I have made wedding dresses for a few friends and a couple of my wife's cousins, but I don't really want to make one for her. She's offered to pay me for my work, but that's not the issue. It feels like she likes my work but doesn't respect me, hell even disrespects me, for making dresses. I told her this and that I knew about the remarks she made on my wedding day, and she got mad, saying I'm being a dick for holding something that happened years ago over her. I brushed it off, but my wife's family is hounding me about it, saying I shouldn't deny her the dress when I've done it for other family members. I came here though since my dad told me I was being an idiot and to just take the money. My wife supports me no matter what I decide. Comment 1. NTA. Even professionals have the right to refuse someone their service. You would be doing this as a favor, paid or not paid, doesn't matter, it is not your job, thus it is a favor. Reading this, she didn't even apologize when you called her out on her remarks. I am sorry, the in-laws are on her side. What about your wife? Comment 2. NTA. If you were so inclined, take the estimate for the dress, multiply by 3 and that's what you tell her. It's your I don't want to do it, but I will if you show me the money price. Make sure you include the cost of the fabric, notions, wear/tear on your machines and a living wage by the hour for yourself. Payment in full upfront before a single stick or yard of fabric is ordered. Not sure where you're based, but in my region that would put the cost of the dress up around 30k. For 30k, I'd make my worst enemy a dress. I might hand-stitch tiny curses into the seams, but I'd do the dress, pocket the money and laugh all the way to an awesome vacation. Comment 3. NTA. So she gets to make what she considers nasty remarks about your character, act coldly towards you since your wedding, make a big ask, and then run crying to family when she doesn't get what she wants. Treating you coldly wasn't years ago, and her trying to manipulate you is in the present. Don't give in, principles are priceless. Screw your sil. Telling parents not to take their kids trick or treating to a certain house. My husband and I have 5 kids between us. He had 2 from a previous relationship, 9 and 13, I have 1, 14, and we have 2 together, 3 and 6. Our 6-year-old is autistic. She is verbal, but she doesn't like strangers and doesn't talk to them. I was worried about taking her trick or treating, but I know she practiced at school and we practiced the signs candy please and thank you. It was going well at first, then she started to get tired. At one of our last houses, she didn't speak or sign. The woman was handing out goodie bags with king-size candy bars and stickers. She gave one to all of my kids except for my 6-year-old. She ran to me crying, and my 14-year-old told me that the woman didn't give her a bag because she wouldn't say trick or treat. I went up and explained that she's autistic and doesn't speak much, but the woman refused to give her anything unless she said trick or treat. After some back and forth, I made the kids give the bags back and we left. I texted a group chat with parents in my daughter's classes, both general ed and special ed, gave them the address, and explained what happened so they wouldn't have to deal with that with their kids. Word spread pretty quickly, so that house was not very popular last night except for some pranks. People even posted about her on Nextdoor. Now she's posting about me and my kids, and this whole thing is blown out of proportion. I was wondering if I was wrong for telling parents not to take their kids to her house. Comment 1. NTA. People who are mean to kids because they're neurodivergent, or because they have disabilities, or even just because they're shy or don't jump through hoops on command deserve what they get. The ESHs here are so worried about her poor hurty feelings about being piled on. Well, she earned them with her behavior, unlike the child she was cheerfully willing to single out and treat cruelly for the crime of having a disability. Maybe a little public shaming will teach her what she apparently lacks the heart to figure out on her own. There is no reason ever to single out and pick on a small child for being different. Comment 2. NTA. I live in one of the go-to neighborhoods for trick-or-treating, and we regularly get over 500 kids come to our door. I don't make them perform for the candy. There is no transaction here beside you show up, You get candy. No costume? You still get candy. Senior in high school? Awesome, here is some candy.
Refusing to pay for a pushchair for my stepdaughter. My stepdaughter, 20, is pregnant and due in January. My husband and I originally said we would buy the pushchair for her when she was a bit further along, as she is high risk and has had several miscarriages, and we didn't want it to linger as a reminder if the pregnancy failed. She picked the pushchair she wanted and we said we would order it for her this month. A couple of weeks ago I mentioned the pram to her, and she asked if her nan had spoken to us about it. I said no and asked what she meant. She then said that she had been shopping with her nan and had found another pram she wanted. This pram was almost exactly the same, but was £500 more than the one she told us she wanted from us. I told her that we couldn't afford to spend that much on the pram, and she said that her nan and granddad are putting £100 and the nan on the father's side is putting £100 towards it, and she wanted us to pay the rest. I spoke to my husband following this conversation with her, and he said we can't afford it, and said he thought we were buying it outright and not just contributing. We have now told her we are not buying that pram for her as we can't afford the amount she wants us to pay, and that the original plan was for us to buy the one she originally chose outright, and not just contribute to it. Even with £200 towards it, we still can't afford it. She has now called us unreasonable and said we aren't being fair. Edit: for those who don't know the British pushchair and pram, they mean a stroller. Edit: the reason we won't give her the money towards it, and we're going to buy it outright ourselves, on our card, is because she has a habit of spending money she is given on things not related to what she asked for / needs. She has previously been given money for food when she didn't have any, and spent it on cigarettes and alcohol. Comment 1. NTA. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Frankly, if she's 20 and isn't on solid financial ground in the first place, then an expensive pram probably shouldn't be a purchase at all. Give her the amount you plan to spend on the original pram, then she can decide how to combine that with the other contributions to choose something. Comment 2. NTA. Of course. You offered her a gift and now it isn't good enough. If it's so important to have a very expensive pram, she can buy it herself. Since she's choosing to have a child, I assume that she is self-sufficient and able to afford it. Comment 3. My first thought reading this was a 20-year-old is too young to be responsible for a child, and boy howdy did she prove that point. I feel bad for your grandchild. No amount of assistance will save them from an incompetent mother.